So if you are a nursing student or you think about becoming a nurse, you have probably heard the term student nurse tech before, and you're like, okay, but what is that? So I recently got hired as a student nurse tech, and in this video I'm going to be sharing exactly what the job is, how I got hired, the interview process, what I make, and the biggest tips for anyone who wants to apply. So let's get right into the things. The first is, what is a student nurse tech? A student nurse tech is exactly what it sounds. It's someone who works in the hospital while they're still in nursing school, and they do patient care under the supervision of the RN. So it's just everything the RN is comfortable with you doing. There are some limitations, but that varies by hospital. For my particular unit, we can do, I don't want to say a lot, but we can do skills like we can do Foley, we can do trach suctioning, we can do skills like that. Some of the things a nurse has to be there for to watch us do, but all in all, it's giving you more exposure, and that is the biggest part of it. So the requirements for being a student nurse, first of all, you have to be in nursing school. I think that's a given. You have to be in nursing school, and then for my particular program, you have to complete your first semester of nursing school. So before you can apply, you have to have 1 semester down, and you have to have your BLS certification, which you would obviously have that because you need that to be accepted into the nursing program. So just making sure that it is current. Then obviously you do your background checks, you do your drug screening, and then it's the interview process. And y'all, this is where I almost messed up. So let's talk about how I got the job. So first and foremost is doing the application online. So after first semester, and it was more towards the end of second semester, I was kind of like, okay, I got my bearings. I think I want to go ahead and apply. So I did that, but I applied as a PCT and I didn't apply as a student nurse tech. And the interview was hot garbage. I was stuttering over my words. I was like, it was bad. It was so bad, but somehow, and I don't know how, but I have to give it up to him because I got a second interview and I was so gagged. I was like, me? But yeah, I got the second interview for PCT, but then had someone tell me, she was like, she was a student nurse tech. She was like, no, wait for student nurse tech. You know, you get more experience, you get more exposure. And then she also talked about education shifts. So what education shifts is, when it comes to student nurse tech, is you can shadow a specific specialty that you might be interested in going into. With me wanting to go into L&D, I'll be able to go and shadow L&D on these education shifts. So I was like, what? And you can't do that as a PCT. So I was like, yeah, no, we're wrapping that up. We're going student nurse tech. And I just emailed them, say, hey, I'm thankful, blah, 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 but I'm cool. It's a 2-part interview. The first one is kind of superficial. They're just asking you about yourself, your experience, why you want to work here, how'd you find out about them, just standard things, right? And then they ask you 1 clinical based question. So I think it was, name a time where you had to deal with a difficult coworker. I believe that was the question. And then you have to use the STAR method. I knew nothing about the STAR method until I started interviewing. So biggest tip is make sure you know the STAR method. It consists of situation, task, either action or assessment, and then your response. So that's the way they want you to structure all of your answers back to them. And then about a couple days later, I got an email saying, oh, hey, you could go ahead and schedule your second interview. It was a little bit more intense because it was just straight questions. So it was 2 ladies. They got on the call and they introduced themselves and gave a little bit about their background, and then they did like a quick overview of the program, and then they were like, okay, so you ready to get on this grill or what? Because that's how it seemed for me. It was like, okay, hi, I'm so and so, blah blah blah, and go. So they asked about 10 to 12 questions. Yeah, they asked like 10 to 12 questions, and child, I don't even remember. The whole thing is honestly a blur, but I remember one specific question they asked me. They asked me again the how do you handle a difficult coworker question, and since I was up on the STAR method, I was like, yeah. So basically the way I answered it was, I was like, okay, I've had a situation in which, you know, I encountered a coworker who seemed like they might have been having a little bit of a difficult time with their patient load, just a difficult day in general, but I had to get done vital signs, or I had to get done whatever it is, and I really needed this particular nurse's help. I just didn't really know what was going on, so I tried to take a step back, let her breathe a little bit. I tried to, like, see how I can help her to where I can lighten her load a little bit, the assessment part. And then the response was I just wasn't able to get through to her on my own, so I escalated to my preceptor. My preceptor set a meeting between her and I, and then we were able to communicate, and it just came down to she was just overwhelmed with the patient load, and she didn't really have time to explain things to me the way I needed things to be explained. So I had to change my perception, and she had to change how she was being perceived, and we came together and we was able to work things out, and it actually brought us closer as a student and a preceptor, because she was my preceptor. So that was just a quick little example. So I'm on float pool. I prefer float pool than one particular unit, so it kind of just depends on what the hospital is offering at the time and then your personal preference. I think as a nursing student, you definitely want to do float pool because you can get exposure to all types of different things. I had my first float shift in the ED this week, which is going to be in the vlog, so make sure y'all watch out for the vlog. And it was just a world's difference than anything I do on a regular med-surg floor. What the day looks like for me, I come on, if I'm doing a education shift, which is my nurse tech shifts, I come on the same time as the nurse, and I get report with the nurses, and then I go out to the floor. And usually once the nurse get her assignments, I'll go ahead and do purposeful rounding. So what that looks like is just going in, saying, introducing yourself, making sure that they're not in pain, that they have to use the bathroom, potty, position, turning them, anything you can do for that. I forget the other two P's, possessions. But anyways, just going in there, introducing yourself, letting them know, hey, I'm going to be your nurse tech for the night. Do you need anything? Are you in pain? Do you need to be repositioned? Do you need to go to the bathroom while I'm here? And that's just kind of the general layout. And then I go ahead and get their vital signs. And if there's any chem sticks, which is the blood sugars, I just go ahead and get those done out of the way. So as soon as I come on the shift, for me personally, that's what I do, just to go ahead and bang things out of the way. But throughout the night, we do vitals, we do baths, we do ambulation, turning, we do if they need anything to eat, whatever it is. I go in there with the nurse also when the nurse is giving meds, and just kind of watch how that is done. I'm just talking to them. Sometimes they just need someone to talk to. I do a lot of stalking and just whatever the nurses need. I just try to be as helpful and as useful as possible. So what nobody told me is how physically demanding it is. When you're doing clinical, yeah, you're a little tired, but I just feel like it's a world's difference than actually being on shift for 12 hours. Like, it's night and day difference, and I don't know why. Maybe because in clinical you're doing so much paperwork that you're not on the floor the whole time. You're on the floor, and a big segment of that is doing the paperwork for school. But when you're a student nurse tech, you're on the floor the whole night. There's no paperwork, there's no none of that. It's just you running, and the call lights never stop. The call lights never stop. And I even be joking, I'll be like, we really need to implement a no call light period, like a period where everybody's call light is turned off, okay? Because I don't know if they sitting in bed like 1, 2, 3 go or what, but I swear everybody's call light get pressed at the same time. And it's also like emotionally draining as well, because I've seen when it comes to like passing and bereavement and stuff like that, and that's something I've never really been exposed to. Even in my personal life, I've never had that up close experience with passing, so that was very hard. And then you just see patients, and you see them young, and it's just a whole nother world, so it does take an emotional toll on you. Of course they say like the more you see things, the more you kind of get numb to it, but those first 2, 3, 5s, you're like, oh my gosh, it's so overwhelming. Kind of just rattles you a little bit. So no one really talks about that, and those are things for me that I feel like really hit when I got in there, because I feel like I prepared for a lot of it, but the physical, I don't know if you could really prepare for that. And then the emotional aspect also, unless you have really just seen a lot of bereavement throughout your life, it's just gonna really be, you know, it's gonna be hard in the beginning. This part actually surprised me in a pleasant way. So the pay and the scheduling. So I'm PRN, so I just pick up shifts as I need to pick up shifts. And they make it really easy because we can go into the system and you can pick, you know, if you want to do the whole shift, part shift. And I think I've showed that before on a vlog, but they make it really easy to go in there and pick your shifts. So I love that part of it. And while we're in school, we only can work 16 hours a pay period. So I think that's wonderful. So just, you know, 1/8 each week. So that's fine. And as far as the pay for a tech position and excuse me, for a tech position, and I'm in Central Texas, we make 20 an hour, which I don't know why that surprised me, because when I was in the PCT, they was offering me 16, and that 16 came from the fact that I was in the military for 3.5 years. So that's how I got the 16. And then, so when they said 20, I was like, what'd you say? Run that number back. 20 flat? Oh, okay. So that is well received and a good, pleasant surprise, because I was like, yeah, I can work with that. And just having the flexibility, being in a float pool. So all those things were actually pleasant surprises, because those are things I didn't know until I got into the interview process and I asked questions. And also the education shadow shifts. So the fact that I can go and shadow L&D to make sure like I want to go L&D, I'm like, we love that. Thank you. Because as soon as November comes, y'all will see me in L&D. Okay. Some things I would do differently is just make sure that you do research. Make sure that you're sure about it. Just make sure you're sure about wanting to do this, and make sure you lean on the different people around you. Because like I said, you know, I had those missteps with the PCT situation, but then I had somebody redirect me like, no, you actually want to do student nurse tech. So if I didn't have that redirection and I kind of was already misstepping in the beginning with PCT, I just felt like that set a tone that I didn't necessarily want. So if you have to just go ahead and do mock interviews, I think those are great. Those are something I would do differently. Make sure you're prepared. You know, you don't want to go in there and they trip you up too bad. Obviously, I did have a question where I was like, oh, I just don't know how to answer it, and I had to come back to it at the end. But you don't want to every question just be so frazzled. So make sure you look up, you know, sample questions and do clinical based questions, because they do ask you clinical based questions. So just make sure you're prepared. Make sure it's exactly what you want to do. Make sure the terms match, you know, what you're looking for. And also the final thing is make sure you can handle it while in school, because this program is not a summer program. It's not none of that. We still are responsible for showing up for work while we're in school. So make sure that you have a good basis of nursing school, how you like to study. So I think me doing it towards the end of second semester, I was comfortable in the way, you know, I like to study. So I was like, okay, I think I can handle this. So make sure you know, really checking yourself. I think it's worth it. So my opinion, I think it's worth it. If you can do student nurse tech, if your college and hospital have that program, do it. The exposure that you get in the hospital is unmatched. Yeah, you have clinical, but it's only one day out of the week, so you're missing a lot of gaps. And there's a lot of things you just won't see in clinical that you definitely will see on the floor. So don't shy away from it. Don't, you know, they understand that we are simply first semester nursing students. Like, they're not, you know, looking for us to go in there and have the perfect answers, say the perfect things, you know, have the perfect resume. They're not looking for that. They're just looking for you to show up, be confident, and then exude a sense of, I'm eager to learn and I'm moldable. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for you to be moldable, to where they can curate you and pour into you, to where you can get to where you need to be, which is a better nurse. That's all they're looking for. So just show up for it, do your best, do a little bit of research, and you got it. Like, literally, that's it. Don't overthink it. Don't overthink it at all. Like, so that is my biggest advice. I think you should do it. Don't let it scare you. You got this. I hope this gave you a better idea of what it is to be a student nurse tech and maybe inspired you to just go ahead and apply. So if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and leave anything down in the comments that you want to see next or any questions that you want answered, and I will see you on the next one.